Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, and I'm here with attorney Cesar Gavidia. And we want to talk about disability business buyout policies. And Cesar, we've handled a lot of these disability business buyout policies, and they're one of the more technical type claims for a variety of reasons that we're going to get into in this video. They're also only sold by a limited number of disability companies because they're really one of the specialty type policies that only apply to business partners and corporations that have shareholders, obviously. And a lot of times people contact us, unfortunately, after they've already submitted a claim to the carrier, which of course we can help with, but there's a lot that can be done before you submit the claim that can really put yourself in the best position to get approved. And obviously we recommend that someone who's in this position to reach out to us for an initial free consultation, whether it's you, myself, or any of our lawyers. We're always willing to do that. And it's a certain level of expertise about these claims that a lot of people have really never handled because there's just not all that many of them. But when you start off with one of these claims, Cesar, for a business buyout, what are the first fundamental steps that need to be taken and that someone should be aware of when submitting one of these claims?
Sure. So the common element here with these buy-sell agreements, these buyout agreements that are sold by these disability insurers, is that common element that the claimant must be disabled, right? So the insured has to be disabled. It's a common element amongst the individual disability policies, amongst the business overhead expense policies, and even with these buyout and buy-sell policies. And so you're establishing a claim of total disability based on your inability to work in your occupation. And the other critical element of that is that there's got to be a partnership agreement in place, a shareholder agreement, basically, that describes the shares and the percentage of interest and ownership that the various partners have in this business.
And what's unusual about these claims, Caesar, and talk about how it makes them somewhat difficult, is the elimination period.
So, typically you have, and this is really the rule rather than the exception, is this long elimination period, this long waiting period that you have to show or establish that you're totally disabled before the benefits through this buy-sell agreement or buy-sell policy would kick in. So usually that elimination period, that waiting period, is 1 year, is 365 days. And the reason for that is that first, the disability insurer, and I could see this is playing a little bit to the advantage of the disability insurer. So let's say we have one partner who's a very active and significant partner in the business, and his disability is impacting him. And then we've got, the point where it's really affecting perhaps the production of that business. 6 months into it, the business has to close because that partner can no longer produce, right? The remaining partner or partners just can't pick up what that partner, what that business, that partner's really been producing. If after a year there is no business that exists for the disability and for the buy-sell policy to buy out, then the disability insurer isn't paying out any benefits, right? So there's got to be a business in existence. There's got to be a partnership agreement, a buy-sell agreement in place and in existence for that to happen. So that real lengthy waiting period, and if there's any way, I don't know, when business owners are going and they're being presented these policies by their insurance agents to work down that elimination period, I think that would be a real important thing to do, or a real important thing to look into, because that long waiting period, many things can occur, many things can happen that would basically preclude the payment of these benefits by this buy-sell policy.
Well, and it's an interesting issue because you have to look at the language of the policy, because is it the valuation of the business at the day on the date of disability, or is it the valuation a year later? And what we often try to argue is that it should be the valuation on the day that the partner became disabled. Just because of the fact that you have a 365-day or a 2-year elimination period, you would expect a business to suffer if one of the significant partners or shareholders, is unable to work anymore in that business. And like you said, we've had many clients where the whole business does fall apart. So it's really a function also in all of these disability buyout policies where they turn to the language of the buyout agreement. And we have seen all different kinds of buyout agreements. There's no rule of thumb as to how to write a buyout agreement. I mean, it can be that the buyout agreement can say we're going to pay you on the valuation a year after you're disabled. We're going to pay you on the day of. We're going to pay you out over a 3-year period. We're going to come up with 1 year's revenues, whatever it is. And the valuation of the business is a significant factor when dealing with these buyout policies, because when a partnership or a business buys this policy, they could have bought it 10, 15 years, 5 years, before this date of disability. Business could have been worth a lot more then, or it could be worth a lot less now. So if you have a $3 million buyout policy and you're only doing, $1.5 million in sales, you're probably not going to get the $3 million buyout, because the business has to be worth the amount of what you're contracted for. And keep in mind, Cesar, it's a business buyout of a partner. It's not necessarily a business buyout of the whole business. So if you're a 50% partner and the business is only worth $1 million, then you're looking at a $500,000 value of those shares. So sometimes the disability carriers are going to challenge the valuation, and sometimes they're not. But what financial information should a company be prepared to present in evaluating these claims?
Sure, they're going to want, and look, it's not too different from all of the information that they request when you submit your individual disability claim to that same disability insurer. They're going to want to see your profit and loss statements. They're going to want to see the tax returns for the business. They're going to want to certainly see that shareholder agreement between you and the remainder of the partners, right? So, and then of course that, the dissolution of partnership agreement, or the shareholder, buyback agreement. That's the other thing that they're going to certainly want to see. There may be even an appraisal that you may need to do of the business that they want to see as well. So there are a lot of financial documents. You're probably going to have to get your CPA that's really doing all the books for the business involved as well, because these are things that they're going to look over, they're going to scrutinize, they're going to have financial consultants that are basically forensic CPAs that might have worked years and years for the IRS doing these extensive, comprehensive, and confusing audits, and now they're looking at your business, So you certainly have to have your house in order before you do anything with your buy-sell with your buy-sell policy.
Yeah, so it's hard enough in these claims to prove disability, and sometimes the threshold's even a permanent disability where likelihood of recovery is not going to happen, which we've dealt with a lot in Lloyd's of London type policies and things like that. So it's not even so much just you're disabled after a year, it's that you have a permanent disability, and that opens up a whole nother can of worms. So, you have to get through the eligibility of medical, and then you got to satisfy the valuation and the partnership agreement. And the biggest thing I want to stress is, really try to plan for this if you can, because sometimes there has to be modifications to the partnership agreement. We've had clients who don't even have the partnership agreement. They just, they had a business and they never really formalized any kind of buyout agreement, and there's situations where those things have to be drafted after the fact, and some policies allow for that because it ends up becoming an arm's length transaction. And the real challenge is there's a lot going on in a year when one partner isn't able to work. So The timing of this is critical. So, I highly stress, get a copy of your policy, reach out to any of us, no matter where you live in the country, we're able to help you. And we look forward to the opportunity to speak with you in the future.